Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. We're back with another fascinating interview about the future of waste and waste management. You know, there's no question the current economy is wasteful, but the challenge remains to figure out where that waste is located and how to reduce it, recycle it, and return it to use without cutting down more trees, mining more raw ore, or any other extractive activities. So recycling and managing our waste is critical. Our guest today is Jason Gates, the CEO of Compology. It's taking the battle to the dumpster. Compology makes AI-powered smart dumpster cameras that monitor how full dumpsters are and helps understand what they contain. This process allows companies to reduce unnecessary pickups, which lowers fuel waste and improves the processing of the content of each bin. Compology tracks the bin over time to provide the first end-to-end waste management monitoring for business, including advice delivered through its app. And these tools let companies or government aid organizations plan production, manage waste to reduce contamination of the recyclables, and help them meet their sustainability goals. Compology may also have a solution for the large landlord. Most apartment buildings don't have recycling services. So these landlords seeking to implement recycling systems for an apartment complex or other large facility rely on private haulers to remove and recycle waste and therefore need to manage those costs. Compology can help. You can learn more about Compology at Compology. That's COMPOLGY.com. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
Well, hey, when I learned about this, I saw a show about your work in Miami, and your technology can identify 6 types of contamination and a variety of materials to help plan and manage that recycling process. How does it work, and what can it identify?
The way the system works is we install super rugged cameras into commercial and industrial dumpsters, containers that are as small as 2 cubic yards that you might see behind a restaurant or in an office park, all the way through 40 cubic yard open top roll-off containers you might see at a manufacturing facility.
Right.
And we take pictures across the course of the day as that container fills up. We send those images through the cell network up to our cloud, where we use artificial intelligence to automatically process those images to determine how full the dumpsters are, when they're being serviced, and the type of material that goes inside them. The 6 different categories of contamination are actually have thousands of different items within each category.
Right.
So it's things from bulky items, which might include furniture or tires, all the way through styrofoam or construction and yard debris.
So the feedback to the dumpster owner would be that you are getting the kind of material you expect or not getting the kind of material you expect in the sense that it represents contamination. If I'm trying to collect mostly paper and there's an old couch dumped into the dumpster, I get an alert. How's that interaction happen with the person who's seeking to improve the quality of the waste they're sending to recycle?
The way that we deliver the educational content is primarily through text and email notifications.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we chose those medium is because that's what most people are starting to use and interact with much more often than a paper mailer or a flyer, a tag that gets left on a container.
Right.
And there's a fair amount of research that shows that consistent and tailored education are the 2 key components to reducing contamination levels and keeping them low over time. The Recycling Partnership is an organization that's done some tremendous work with that research and has published a number of papers on the topic. We take those same concepts and apply them at scale using that text and email notification. So practically how that looks for a restaurant manager is if their cardboard container has a tire or couch thrown in it, they would receive a text at the end of each day saying, hey, there's a couple items of contamination in your recycling container. We recommend that you remove them before the truck comes the next morning. And in the future, you should let your employees know that these types of items are considered contamination and should be put in the landfill garbage container.
So the education is not just, it could be extended to the employees who are actually responsible for filling that up. Do you also provide guidance material that would help people make a better decision about what to put into the dumpster?
We do. And one of the use cases that we're starting to see for bigger organizations that are metering their waste is how the contamination data fits into ESG and sustainability programs at the corporate level. And we found tremendous employee engagement. Two examples of that are looking at some office complexes where there might be multiple buildings and being able to say, hey, the Gmail building is performing this well, and the Android building is performing 3 times better. Here's the things that the Android building is doing that are best practices and all buildings should be doing. And sharing that type of communication with employees gets them really engaged, and we found to be very effective.
That's interesting. So you could even gamify. You could make a competition between the two buildings. Who's doing better? Interesting. Now, one of the it was just a suggestion in passing. I think it was in the video, or it might have been in some of what I read. Is you say, with this system, we wouldn't have to label everything, but obviously you do believe in consumer education. How do you advise brands to think about rethinking labeling to help that consumer education process improve?
Historically, recycling labels have been hidden. They're on the bottom of a container. They might be it's hard to see against maybe a plastic container. And what we've found is that consumers generally have the intent to recycle properly. They just don't know how. Right. And that's for a number of reasons. One is inconsistent labeling on packaging, and the other is kind of inconsistent regulations around what's recyclable and what's not. So when brands start to think about how they can contribute, a big piece is how do you integrate the recyclability of an item, of a packaging item, into the design, into the branding, and promote that something is recyclable as opposed to trying to hide it on the bottom of a bottle. The way that this translates to technology and actually supporting technologies like waste metering or even sorting technology at material recovery facilities where material is aggregated and separated into its different components, the labeling helps that technology tremendously make good decisions in terms of what's recyclable and what's contamination. And a prime example of that is with cardboard boxes. Mm-hmm. One of the items that Compology counts is cardboard. And we're seeing that 8% of what's in a landfill garbage container is actually clean cardboard that could be recycled. So one of the most common notifications we send is, hey, you should remove that cardboard and put it into your recycling container. But with more labeling on the outside of cardboard boxes, our system can more accurately detect what is cardboard and what is not, and ultimately identify more cardboard that could then be diverted from landfills.
Now, can the camera also understand the spatial relationships in the bin so that if you had an uncollapsed cardboard box, which I think is one of our biggest problems, we just waste a lot of space in the dumpster, it could alert you to the fact that you need to do a better job of preparing the materials as well?
That's exactly right. Uncollapsed cardboard is one of the worst offenders in terms of what we call artificial fullness. Mm-hmm. It only takes a couple uncollapsed cardboard boxes to fill up most dumpsters, and the savings opportunity from reducing service frequency just by breaking down cardboard boxes ends up being pretty impactful. You mentioned liking to talk about very practical solutions, and one of the things that Compology has found to be the most effective at reducing uncollapsed cardboard boxes is fastening a plastic box cutter to the dumpster corral or the dumpster itself for recycling, so that employees, when they take out the material, the box cutter is right there, and it's a pretty simple motion for them to break down that box before they put it in the container.
A great point. Now, What other kinds of waste optimization and contamination reduction is possible, or what are the big offenders? What should people be watching for in their dumpster?
The biggest offender that we see today is cardboard going into a landfill garbage container. Mm-hmm. I think there's kind of two reasons for that. One is there's a perception that they may not need a recycling service, so they only have a landfill garbage container.
Right.
And we see many businesses go that route where between 50 and 80% of the material they generate is actually clean cardboard. Mm-hmm. And with just a little bit of tweaking of their mix of services, they could end up saving a lot of money and divert a lot of material from landfills. I think that's a primary one and a great opportunity from some low-hanging fruit.
What about food waste? Could it recognize and recommend a better use of food waste material that was being dumped in a restaurant dumpster, for instance?
Well, one of the really interesting applications is for a California regulation called SB 1383, which requires the diversion of 75% of material from landfills. And organic material is one of the top opportunities there. So in recycling food waste, the contamination looks a little bit different and is quite a problem because you have everything from silverware to plates to wine bottles that end up in a restaurant's food waste container. And being able to remove that stuff dramatically increases the compostability and reuse of that material rather than having to send it to a landfill. So I think food waste is a tremendous application and one that we do a lot of work in today, specifically with SB 1383 compliance.
So thinking about computer vision, you can continue to train these your systems that process the images to recognize and analyze a lot more material in these dumpsters over time. How widespread do you believe the adoption of smart camera technology is going to be? Because one of the concerns that I consistently see with both consumers and businesses that contact us is about their privacy, because the materials that they send for recycling are potential security issues. Could, for instance, the camera start saying, hey, you didn't shred your documents in order to create better security for a company?
I think security is a great point and something that we take very seriously at Compology. We've implemented bank level security standards for how we collect and store our data and the data of our customers. But to your point, specifically on being able to help correct some of those behaviors, I think you're absolutely thinking about things along the right path. And one of the things that we get really excited about is we believe that we're on the very early side of being able to demonstrate the complete capabilities of what you would get by implementing a waste metering system. Mm-hmm. We're starting with very tactical cost savings and the low-hanging fruit when it comes to contamination, but there's the more advanced functionalities like being able to identify documents that have not been shredded and using that to notify those businesses so they can take proper corrective action that I think we'll definitely see in the future.
It's interesting once you start thinking about how, if things are measured, you can optimize or improve the performance of the entire system. Everything could change. Now, tell us about what you did in Miami. It was an interesting project, and you managed to reduce the waste volume pretty significantly.
That program has been a tremendous success, and I commend the leadership in Miami for their vision and taking a big step forward in helping the city. Commissioner Ken Russell reached out to us in partnership with Mayor Suarez because the city has a really big carbon emissions reduction target that they've set for themselves. And Commissioner Russell was searching for practical applications that are off the shelf, ready to make an impact today. And we deployed a pilot program with the city in almost 40 of the city buildings. Those are police stations, fire stations, city hall, and found that 63% of those dumpsters could have their service levels reduced, which would result in a 40% cost reduction in their waste hauling costs, and ultimately, just on those buildings, save 33 tons of carbon emissions every year. So those results have been so compelling that the city is now moving towards figuring out how they can roll waste metering out on a much larger scale and include more city buildings as well as businesses that operate within the city.
Now, in order for you to grow, is your primary partner going to be the waste haulers? Who do you see as critical to bringing together into a coalition to drive the adoption of smart camera technology in our waste system?
We found that the biggest change makers in the industry are actually the companies that generate the waste. And so our primary customer base today are brands that have large real estate portfolios, typically that are distributed across several states or even several countries. And kind of to give you a flavor for we have over 1,300 different brands that we work with today. And they range in many different industry segments. So we have a lot of quick service restaurants like McDonald's and Wendy's. We have retailers like Nordstrom's and REI, Dick's Sporting Goods. We have more warehousing or multifamily housing operators. So the value is across all different property types, but really the kind of the key factor is that distributed real estate portfolio, and kind of the bigger their portfolio, the bigger impact that business will see and they'll be able to have on the environment and the country.
So what I hear you saying too is that the data that you're generating becomes the foundation for extending all those relationships to other brands, to other steps in the value chain as well. Do you have an API, an application programming interface for folks who aren't into the tech that allows people to access your information so that app developers could start to build in connectivity to a Compology camera? Is that something that you're thinking about as your growth strategy?
We do have an open API. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I have found most rewarding in developing this technology is seeing the other really bright people who are thinking about waste and how we can improve the way the system operates. An example of that is we have some restaurant brands who pull in the data from their waste containers, and they start overlaying it with things like weather, their sales, customer reviews in their restaurants. And the results from that become pretty fascinating in terms of how they start to use waste information to change the customer experience and change the business processes at those restaurants. And I think that's a very specific example, but there are plenty of other opportunities out there for how businesses and governments can use waste data to influence decisions, influence policy, and track their progress towards those goals.
So do you see consumer brands adopting ways to interact with a smart camera as part of their strategy for ensuring that their packaging and their products at end of life can be recaptured and recycled?
I think there's a theme around accountability. Mm-hmm. And there are different ways of approaching that, but ultimately, in order to hold someone accountable, you have to understand what's actually going on, and you have to be able to measure accurately and reliably. And I think brands are getting really excited about having access to a data stream that they've never had before. And an example of that is Apple is one of our customers for a long time, and they were using estimates for how much waste they were producing. After implementing waste metering, they found that those estimates were over 50% off.
Wow.
And now in their corporate social responsibility report, which is a public document, it goes out to all their shareholders, mm-hmm. they use data from waste metering to hold themselves accountable to the goals that they've set out for the company.
As I listen to you talk about this, I think about the challenge of getting this into the consumer channel and extending what you're talking about, which is that visibility and accountability for materials. Essentially extended producer responsibility. If I'm going to take ownership of the materials that I put out in the marketplace, I need to find a way to get them back. And this sounds like the keystone. Could this be extended to the home? And is it economically viable at this point, or is it something that a group of brands could come together to enable in order to put this to work for all of us?
I think so. And I think that that's a great point, that in order to reach the masses, a residential solution is really a necessity. And we talk about that a lot. And I think there's the practicality of putting a camera in every cart that is at a residential home, single family home. I don't know if that makes sense. And right. The way that we've been approaching it is maybe we need to take an approach that's truck based. Mm-hmm. And there's all of the concepts around highly tailored and consistent education delivered through digital channels. I believe that holds very true, and maybe even more so for consumers than for businesses. And I think it's about just how we capture that data. So Compology is actively working on solutions for the residential market. And for any brands that are in the audience today, I encourage you to reach out. And this is something that we're very interested in. We've had discussions with the Recycling Partnership, Closed Loop Partners, some of the other kind of really influential organizations in the industry on how to bring a residential solution to market.
Now, this notion of extending digital recycling education seems to me like the spear point of the conversation you're having with the marketplace. When we start, let's imagine, for instance, that I'm a brand thinking about launching a new product. Should I be thinking about integrating that kind of a educational resource into my marketing and into my packaging so that folks are actively able to think about and act on the opportunity to recycle?
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. And I think we're going to, the trend has already started, and it's only going to become stronger, that consumers are going to want to see brands who advertise the recyclability of their products. Mm-hmm. And how do we take that recycling symbol and turn it into a status symbol, a badge of honor that a brand might want to make very prominent on their packaging, rather than something that they want to hide and kind of keep in the background.
Well, so you're describing the challenges that we talk about every week, and it's clear that Compology has got a lot of the resources that we need to start thinking about putting out in the market. And it's going to be fascinating to follow along as you evolve. I hope you'll come back and talk with us about it more. How can a business who's listening to the show right now get in touch with you and start a conversation about what they could do?
The best way to get in touch with us is through our website at www.compology.com, through our newsletter, which you can sign up for on our website to get updates about all the big events and releases in our world, and to follow me on LinkedIn. So on my personal LinkedIn page at Jason Gates.
Well, I will be doing so, and I hope that everybody who's listening will do as well. Jason, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mitch. This has been a lot of fun.
We've been talking with Jason Gates. He's the CEO of Compology. You can find out more at compology.com. Sign up for his newsletter. This is going to be an interesting technology to follow, and I'm sure there'll be multiple competitors out there, and we will try to bring you into contact with all of them. And generally, folks, it is about how we think about our future and making new choices and embracing new approaches to collecting, processing, and reusing everything we use in our lives in order to reduce the impact on the environment. That is how we're going to resolve the climate crisis, both with large umbrella projects by governments and large companies, and our individual actions. So let's start to work together, sharing more ideas so we have less waste. This is Earth 911, Sustainability in Your Ear. We'll be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.